welcome Dolores Huerta, longtime advocate for the voiceless and instigators of very, very good fights. Dolores.
Thank you very much, Gabby. And I want to thank everybody for having me be part of this very, very important the session that you're having today, because when we see everything that's going on around us and we think, oh my God, what can we do? What can we do? How can we address all of these issues? We know that the pandemic has shot the spotlight on so many things that have to be corrected. And I just want to say, you know, we have to, in a way, we have to say to all the protesters out there that we understand what they're doing. I personally could not join a protest. I'm still on lockdown like many of you. Mm-hmm. My grandchildren were out there protesting, and we have to thank them for that in many ways for bringing those voices. We do know that we have to do more in terms of saying to the police, you have to really help the protesters, not attack them. We have to help them because protesting is, of course, a civil right that we have under our Constitution of the United States of America. But we know that these protests have to be managed, that they have to be organized in such a way so that other innocent people are not getting killed in the process. But they definitely are bringing attention to the things that need to be fixed. And when we say that, and when we do our outreach to get people to register to vote, this is what the connection that we have to make. You know, one of the things that I've learned in my, 60 years of activism, because I started actually 70 years now, because I started when I was in my 20s. The one thing that I learned is that you have to connect the vote with legislation, because so many people out there, they don't realize that when you vote, you're actually going to have a really tragic and a tangible, you're going to have a tangible result for your participation in voting. Way back when I was in my 20s and as a lobbyist and a political director for the Community Service Organization, which was the organization that Cesar Chavez and I first got involved in, the gentleman that taught us, and many of you may know of him, many of you may not. He's such a great organizer that nobody knows who he is. His name was Fred Ross Sr. Fred Ross had been involved in the down there in Orange County, California, when they had Mexican kids segregated in schools from the white kids, and he organized the parents to be able to desegregate the schools and to file lawsuits, and he ended that segregation. So the thing that Fred taught us is that, yes, that we can make changes, but it does start with voting, and a lot of people just don't realize that. I started to say when I was a political director of the Community Service Organization, which was that group that we formed and that Fred Ross helped us organize. One of my first pieces of legislation that I passed in California was that people could register to vote. That sounds swell. What, really? Way back in 1963, and I like to really talk about this, especially when I go to Texas, okay? Because before in California, they had the same voting procedures that you have in Texas, but you couldn't register to vote unless you found a deputy that could register you. Well, we got rid of that way back in 1963. And every time I go to Texas and I say this to people over there, do you know that in California you can register at the, when you get your driver's license at the DMV, you can register to vote on your cell phone. Everybody can vote absentee, which we know is the big fight that's going on right now. And but as a result of that voter registration, we passed some really important legislation. One of the pieces that we were working on was that if you were a legal resident of the United States of America, if you had your green card, you could get public assistance. And that meant that you could get help for the aged, for the blind, for the disabled, aid to needy children. All of these benefits that had been denied to legal immigrants in the United States, we were able to attain. And I think that is our job as we go forward, because we have so much cynicism out there. So many people think, well, my vote doesn't matter. I don't matter. And so, when we talk about voter registration, I don't even like to use that word anymore. Mm-hmm. I like to use the word voter education, because we can register tons of people but that doesn't mean that they're going to vote. And especially when it comes to our Latino community, and I think low-income communities, again, because they think their vote doesn't matter, and these are the votes that are absent in the work that we're doing. So we have to take the time, and it might take 10 minutes, it might take 15 minutes, 20 minutes, to really take time with a potential voter and explain to them why it is important for them to vote, and tie it in with some piece of legislation that is going on right now. For instance, right now we know that in the Senate, they are not talking about the HEROES Act. They are talking about additional stimulus, additional funding to be able to come into our communities for the people that are currently in need because of the COVID virus. So this is a good time to talk to them. We can say to them that previous stimulus package, the CARES Act, you were able to get some of that money because, there are people here, our Democrats, they fought for that and they passed that. So now here we have this other HEROES package that is going to be in the Senate. And so when we talk to people, and by the way, we should also make this a priority for all of our lists, is to say to people, look, could you please pick up the phone and I guess when I say pick up the phone, it shows my age, right? But on your cell phone, call your senator, send them an email, tell them to please vote for the HEROES Act, and not to gut it, to make sure that funding really goes to where it should go, that it goes to the people in need. This pandemic has definitely put the spotlight on all of our areas of need, and we know what they are. I know everybody who's with us today knows exactly what they are. We're talking about our healthcare needs, the need for our children, the poverty that we have, the inequitable education, the prison reform that we need, so much, especially our communities of color. So we have a lot of content in terms of the conversations that we're going to be having with people. But the main thing is that we just have to convince them that they do matter and that they need to get out. They have to participate. You see behind me, I have the sign with the census on it, okay? Well, as you know, so many of our people, they have not yet participated in the census.
Yeah.
They have not even done that little simple 10-minute act of answering the questions that they need. And we say to them, please, do you realize, like in California, for instance, every one of us that gets counted, we bring in $2,500 into our community. If we don't participate, if we don't get counted, hey, that money's not going to come in. And we know that our opponents, the people that hate us, the Trump administration, they want our people to be invisible. And we have to convince them, you have to be visible. You have to be counted, because we are going to lose money for schools, for healthcare, for infrastructure, for parks, for streets, all of, for firefighters, all of this, services that we get through our taxes, we're going to lose that because you did not want to take the time to participate. So it's kind of helping to make people accountable and make them responsible. And once they understand that, I think that is what makes the difference. So when it comes to participating in the census, when it comes to registering to vote, and the other thing too, I think at this point, we don't want to say to people, we just want you to vote. No, we want you to commit to be an activist. We want you to come out here and help us get other people out to vote, get other people to register, help us to educate other people. And this is the way that we're going to do it, because we know that each one of us alone cannot make this happen. And I want to just talk a little bit too about the things that have been happening on the street. And this is why organization is so important. We know that the police out there, they should have been helping with the demonstrations to keep them civil. And I like to use an example as to why organizing is so important. In the United Farm Workers Movement, we had 5 people that were killed. We had 5 martyrs. 2 of them were killed within a 48-hour period. And one of them, Naji Daifala, was killed by a sheriff's deputy. There was no riots after that. Everybody fasted. We had a candlelight vigil. We had a huge march of about 25,000 people, but there were no violent repercussions. And if, you know, this is why organization is so crucial and so important. So we have to continue to keep organizing. And I know so much of it has to be done virtually. And so we want to thank Andrea and all of you out there in the virtual world, which many of us are still trying to catch up on, you know, because you're ahead of the game, because somehow we have to continue organizing. It might be a little bit harder to do virtually, but I think it's a mandate that we have now, especially if we're going to try to win in November, that we have to continue to organize, organize, organize. And I think this is the way that we can actually make things happen, the changes that we need in legislation to make sure that all of these needs that we have in our community, that the resources are given to those needs. Oh, and that's the other thing. We have the time with the census. Tell people that this is how we get representation in the legislature, in the school board, and especially in the Congress. And for the Latino community, we have to emphasize, yeah, we're still trying to get immigration reform. You know, it's like we're 20 years late now. We should have been able to get that way back when we had those incredible big marches that we had back in 2006 and 2007. But there's still a chance, but we've got to get people elected, the people out there that will vote for immigration reform. And we're the only ones that can do it. So we have to, you know, not to give up. We can't give up. We've just got to keep working. I'm really happy to see all of the effects that have resulted from the work that Andrea and her group are doing. I was lucky to be in Virginia to be able to do some of that campaigning out there to see the wonderful results that came from those campaigns. And I actually use the state of Virginia as an example, especially in that election where the legislature remained red because of only one single vote. And so I use that example a lot just to explain to people how important it is that they vote. Just one last thing, you know, many times people say about the Latino community, why don't they vote? People get so frustrated. I like to say we have to invite them to vote. We have to invite them to vote. And I know some candidates don't like this when I say that, but you know, when voters that have never voted and they get a ballot, a big long ballot, and it's got all of these names on it and it's got propositions on it, and they kind of look at that and they kind of throw up their hands. I don't know these people. You know, what am I going to do? Well, we have to do more voter information to give to people, but also say to them, vote what you know. There's a saying in Spanish that says, no queremos quedar mal. We don't want to make a mistake. And so what they do is they just don't vote, okay? So no, we have to say that, you know, ask somebody, but if you're unsure about something, it's okay to leave it blank. The main thing is to vote for the presidency, for your congressman, for your senators, for your state legislatures, and ask people. So the work that we have to do, as I said before, it's not about voter registration. It's about voter education, and it's about getting people out to vote after we get them registered. So we know what we have to do out there, and I know I'm talking to the choir right now because all of us are on the same page.